Hey everyone, it's about 11 o'clock on Sunday the 6th of June. We got into Fairfield at about 7 o'clock. And we are actually staying at the house of the fire chief for Fairfield. Looked after us, fed us. I've even tried my first beef jerky tonight, which was actually very nice. Been a very hard day. It's probably everybody thinks it's the worst day we've had so far. The first 50 miles from Boise into Mountain Home was pretty much okay, and very little rain, a bit windy, a bit uphill, but it was okay. But then from Mountain Home all the way up here, it's been appalling rain again. Lots of hills, very windy, so I'm absolutely shattered. I've got another 80 miles tomorrow and the day after, but earning the extra rest day is probably going to be of a real benefit. I know I keep saying it and probably sound like a broken record, but I just hope it stops raining soon, because it's just horrible turning up places absolutely dripping wet. Well, anyway, I'm feeling pretty good other than tired, and tomorrow's a brand new day, probably bright sunshine, fingers crossed. Anyway, love you all, miss you all, and I'll see you soon. Night night.